Hi there, if you are watching this video, you may have read the book Cat and Bird, which was inspired by this painting by Paul Klee. His name is spelled K-L-E-E, so it looks like it would be pronounced Klee, but it is pronounced Klee, and this is one of his more famous paintings. We've talked a lot about line and shape in the last few weeks, and you can see that Paul Klee used just a really simple basic lines and shapes to create this picture. You can see some basic triangles. There's a heart shape here for the nose, and he's got lines for the whiskers, really basic lines to make this cat head. And then he's got this bird right here on top of the cat's head. So we're going to draw our own picture of a cat and bird inspired by this painting by Paul Klee. What you will need today is a piece of white paper. I have a 12 by 18 paper. If you have a smaller paper than that, that's okay. I have mine horizontal, or we say the hot dog way, but the horizontal way. You also will need a brown crayon to draw with. You can draw with a pencil first. I like to draw with crayon. Then if I have to make a mistake, I just make it part of my design. So I'm going to start with the brown crayon. If you do a pencil first, you may want to go over it in crayon afterward. Later for this project, you will need more crayons, whatever you have at home, and you will need and can use watercolor paint and some water and a brush. If you do not have those things at home, do this project with what you have and what you can find at home. So the first thing we're going to do is together. We can do this together, so if you want to pause this, get those materials and then draw along with me, you can. Just make sure you're not copying off of me. I'm showing you how to do it and give you some ideas, but I want this work to be your own work. So the first thing I'm going to do is, on my sideways paper, I'm going to draw a really big letter U. I'm pressing kind of hard with my crayon. So I've drawn a really, really big letter U. Now, you can change this up a little bit. I'm going to flip this over on the back and show you. And make it look more like a W. Like that. Or you can really change this up a bit and make more of a really large sideways oval. That is totally up to you because this is going to be the head of our cat. I am going to stick with this letter U right here, but you can do any three of those things. So the next thing I'm going to do is work on the face of my cat. Now, in Paul Klee's version, he had kind of football shapes for eyes, and we talk about that also when we do self-portraits, which will be another choice board. So kind of in the middle of the shoe, I'm going to do football shapes. You may do more ovals or circles, but you want to do them kind of large. In that painting by Paul Klee, those eyes took up a lot of space inside that cat's head. Excuse me. So now I'm going to come up here. I'm going to extend my U up, and I'm going to come down to the middle between the eyes. I'm going to do the same on this end to give me some ears. So that's one way you can do ears, and then I could even do this and start connecting some of these lines like that. I'm going to connect it all the way down just to make my cat a little more interesting. If you are doing this as a circle, maybe I'll do more oval eyes on this cat or circle eyes. I can do that. And then I can just draw some triangle shapes right on top of the circle. So whatever best that's going to do for you. Next, I'm going to add some pupils. Color those in, or you can leave them blank to add another color later, and that is fine. If you want to add, if you have a sleepy cat or a sly cat, you can add some eyelids. I'm going to come down from this point right here, and I'm going to do a triangle shape. And then I'm going to add my cat's nose. Now, Paul Klee did a heart for a nose, which you can do, or you could do an upside down triangle for a nose. This is completely up to you. Okay. Then I'm going to make a line that goes right down there like that. That's my kind of cool looking, he almost looks like Pete the cat, my cool cat. I'm going to come and do some really cool kind of lines for whiskers. Paul Klee did kind of swooping lines. I'm going to do some wiggly lines. You could do curly lines for whiskers. That would be really, really cool. Lastly, I'm going to do 2 straight lines. I'm kind of angling them a little bit, but 2 straight lines for like the neck of my cat. So the picture of my cat is going to be like a head and neck picture. Okay, and there's my cat. If I want to add some other shapes inside here, I can. If I want to add some, I'm going to add some dots in here, I can. And then I'm going to draw a bird up on top of my cat. So I was thinking about this project and thought, so cat and bird, because cats like to chase and eat birds, right? So cat and bird, but if you want to be more creative and think of another animal you could put up here, a mouse maybe, it could be cat and mouse instead of cat and bird. You could absolutely do that. So maybe another small animal that cats like to chase and play with. So I'm going to do a bird, but absolutely mouse might be a really, really good idea. So bird, I'm just going to do a circle, and you can make your bird face either way. Circle for the head or oval, triangle for the beak, oval for the body, and you can make, I'm going to make a really cool tail. I'm going to make the legs of my bird sitting on my cat. Give my bird a wing, give my bird an eye. If I want to make another wing over here, I could. You can draw your bird the best way you know how to draw it. So there's my drawing of cat and bird. Now I'm going to add some color. So if you look at my finished cat, I've added some crayon in some spots, and I've colored anything white that I want left white, I've colored with a white crayon, and then I've added some watercolor in the background and on my cat. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'm going to start adding some color using crayon. Now, a lot of you know that I like to color with crayon, dark and waxy. That means you get to press hard with your crayons. Sometimes when you have these new crayons with these beautiful tips, you don't want to ruin the tips. But I say, press hard with that crayon and fill in your spots. I'm not going to color the entire cat in, but I'm going to color some parts of my cat in. If I want to, I can color, I'm going to color the inside of these ears. I'm going to color the nose, and then anything you want left white. If you want these eyeballs to still be white, then you need to color those with the white crayon before we go in with paint. So I'm going to find a white crayon here. I'm going to color those in. I'm going to add some more color and then come back and show you how to add paint. So I have finished adding crayon to my cat, and again, little bits and little details. Here I just added some around the sides just to give a little crayon kind of pop, like stripes or spots or something. You wouldn't have to do that, but I picked like the nose and the snout and the eyes and things that I could give some good color to with the crayon. Now we're going to do something called wet on wet. Wet on wet is a really fun technique to do with watercolor. We're going to do the cat's head and neck first. So you are, again, going to need some water and a brush. If you don't have watercolor paints at home, you can just color the whole thing in with crayon, and that would be okay and fine. You could try using coffee or tea that has been really strong. That'll give you a nice brown paint, and then you can paint with that. I have done paintings with coffee or tea before. You could take food coloring and mix it with water, and use that to paint with. So you've got a lot of different options, or you can just color the whole thing with crayon, and that would be fine too. So I have filled in just the cat's head and neck with plain water. The reason this is called wet on wet is because you're putting wet paint on wet paper. Now I'm going to take my watercolor set. I'm going to choose a color for my cat. I'm going to have my cat be orange. This is a little bit of an abstract piece, so your cat doesn't have to be brown. Your cat could be a different color, but I'm going to choose one color to go in. And you can see when I lay that paint down, it kind of spreads into the water, and it gives us a really cool effect. You don't want it to be too puddly, so once it starts spreading, I like to smooth it around just a little bit so it doesn't get too puddly without dipping my brush back in the water, because you don't want too much water. But it gives it a really soft effect. You can see that right there. That's pretty cool. So pick a color. And again, you could have a blue cat, you could have a purple cat. Up to you. Now, you're going to want to let this dry a little bit before you do the background. So I'm going to step away for a minute and then we'll come back. Okay, so my cat is dry enough for me to move on. So we're going to do the same thing with the background. I'm going to put just plain water on first. And since the background's bigger, I'm going to work on this in sections. I'm going to do just this end first. And so I'm going to choose a color totally different from orange. I'm going to use purple. The one cool thing about doing wet on wet is I could choose a couple different colors that would work well together, like purple and blue. And I can put some of that blue in next to the purple, and it blends in together. You can see how that's blending in. And that will make it look really cool for your background. And then if you want to spread it a little bit, you can. Or you can just let it blend together. You also can see, because I pressed dark and waxy with those crayons, like I had mentioned at the beginning, my paint is not sticking to my crayon. That is called a watercolor resist. So you're doing two watercolor techniques with this project. You're doing wet on wet, and you're doing a watercolor resist. So you'll want to do the whole background with that wet on wet technique. Make sure you sign your name on the bottom. When it's dry, make sure you take a photo of it, upload it to your Seesaw or Dojo account, and show me what you did. I can't wait to see what you come up with. Have fun making kits in the style of Paul Klee.